It's Monday, and I'd like to welcome you back to the latest episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. As always, this is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually in the trenches every day. I'm your host, Brian Brott, and I want to see all people make good career and life decisions. My guest today is Luke Kohls, an account manager with Palo Alto Networks, who used to be a high school math teacher at Van Buren. Luke shares about what he does at Palo Alto, what it was like to change careers after 7 years as a teacher, what teaching skills have served him best in his new career, and much more. Whether you're interested in a career in business or cybersecurity or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Luke shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today, we don't have a former Van Buren student with us. We have a former Van Buren teacher with us, Mr. Luke Kohls, who spent 4 years teaching math at Van Buren. He is now actually working in business. He works for Palo Alto Networks down in North Carolina. And he's going to talk to us a little bit about his teaching career and then what led him to make the switch into the business field, and what are some of the opportunities that might be out there for people who are interested in going into the business field. So, Mr. Kohls, thank you very much for joining us today. And I'd love to just hear a little bit about Palo Alto and what you do for them as a business development representative.
Yeah, sure thing. So Palo Alto Networks, I've been here for about a year and a half, and I actually just got promoted. So I was a business development representative. Basically, that role entailed I supported some field reps who were throughout the Southeast, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, and Florida. There were 7 of them, a couple in each state. Florida had 3, being as large as a state, and basically worked remotely here in Raleigh, North Carolina to support them, to really drive. My main goal was to drive new business for them, right? They had, repeating customers, and they tried to expand the business with our security portfolio, which I can go in a little more depth later on. But my main goal was really just picking up the phones, cold calling people that, had no idea, who I was. So very challenging, but it's a very, what do I want to say? Very, very challenging, but you learn fast at the role, what works, what doesn't, right? You pick up the phone from a cold caller, right? It just matters the timing sometimes. Sometimes, like, me personally, I might be willing to give them the time of day, hear them out. There's other times, they call it a bad time. So that's part of it, learning that. A lot of, today that role was more into the social media as well, like on LinkedIn, prospecting on there, and emailing and coming up with creative emails. And now world of AI with like a chat GPT has been amplifying that. So it was, that role was really inside sales type, what you kind of call it, and really trying to drive new business was the goal. Since then, I recently, here in August, am now what we call SMB, or small to medium business size organizations. I'm an account manager. So I actually have my set of accounts. So I have, such and such number of customers, as well as some of those, new businesses that we're looking to get in front of. And whether we're competing with some of our competitors or not, we're really just trying to promote some of our new technologies. So that's a little background about my role here at Palo Alto.
Good. When you were in high school at Columbus Grove, so again, not a Van Buren graduate, but definitely spent time here as a teacher, what were you thinking as far as a career and where you thought you might end up in your career journey?
So I was really, as you mentioned, I went the math education or math teacher and pure mathematics route. I always had a little bit nerdy side of me. So I was really tempted with engineering. But just to give you a little background, my dad was engineer, my mom math teacher. So I don't know if that laid an impression on me, but always been really super good at math. Me and my brothers are all really, really good at math, science, that kind of things. So I was really tasked to One, I knew I kind of wanted to play college basketball or college sport at that time. So then I was taking a look at maybe what's the right fit for me there, as well as my career. So I went to actually some Division III schools. Rose-Hulman named one of them that was a top engineering school in Indiana. Really took a look into that, and then decided to go to the University of Findlay. That time didn't have that engineering degree, so that helped kind of persuade me into the math or teaching career. I think I was leaning that way regardless of what decision I was going to make, whether I was, tailored to, pushed to that one career or not, whether they had it. But me being having that personality or loving to be in front of people, talking with people, I just decided to, hey, I think education, I can really enjoy this. So I started out in education, and that was, I wasn't undecided or anything like that. That was my major heading into University of Findlay.
Right. So spent 4 years teaching here at Van Buren, then headed down to North Carolina, taught for 3 years down there, and then decided to make the career change. What was it like, or what maybe led you to make that decision to make that change after, 7 years in the classroom going a different direction?
Sure. So I think I was right on the bubble of, I had 7 years of experience, and, we got to do this for a long time. So getting a taste of teaching in Ohio, at a little smaller school in Van Buren, being down here in a suburb of like Raleigh, North Carolina, at about quadruple the size of the school of Van Buren, and kind of just getting the feel for those, and just at that point of 7 years in, it was kind of for me like an all or nothing. Like, hey, let's decide if I'm going to really be in this, and be a math teacher. Because originally I thought me, and it's still my goal, to be in leadership, whether it's in sales here at Palo Alto or wherever, in the business world. So I thought I was going to go the administration route. The more I looked into that and got a shadow a little bit, I just decided not to. I would say, what really led and was a strong impact on me would have been during the pandemic, when everybody was working from home. So I was working from home, as a teacher. My girlfriend at the time, she was working home, doing actually at a competitor company for Palo Alto. I won't mention on this call, but still there. So I got to shadow a little bit. Our schedules didn't mesh up the greatest. So I got to shadow a little bit her day to day. As well as her sister was doing the same thing. So there'd be times where we go on a family trip or something of the sort. And that's really when, it clicked to me. We came back after the pandemic. I was went back for a full year after that, basically a year and a half-ish. And, just decided to, why not, let's interview. I kind of had a foot in the door or connections here at Palo Alto through, as I mentioned, my wife now and her sister kind of knew some contacts. And I said, what's the worst that can happen if I interview, and I got to that point where I wanted to develop some new skills. Not that teaching's easy by all means, but I just felt I was a little complacent, in terms of just teaching math over and over again. It came to a point where it felt like I just kept relearning, some of the basic algebra and things of that sort. And it was just that I just came to that point early in 2022. I think it was about January or February, and it was like middle of basketball season. I was just like, man, I'm gonna give something else a try. I was fortunate enough, I interviewed, got offered that position here at Palo Alto Networks, and kind of just been here and been happy so far. So yeah.
Right. I think that's a great story and a great example of, again, nothing says that because you start in a career, you have to stay in that career for the rest of your life. There
Yeah.
are other opportunities out there. Now, I think one thing that does concern people who are thinking about changing to a different career is, what about my education? You obviously had a math education degree that wasn't in computers. Was
Yeah.
that something that they were concerned about, or you were able to show these are the skills I have, and that's really what they cared about when making that decision to hire you?
Yeah, so from a career standpoint, you could say, I was 7 years in teaching. I had to make kind of a dip down in the business world, right? Like nobody wants to be on those phones cold calling people every single day, right? So I had to almost take a drop down, but from what I was able to produce of, hey, I have 7 years teaching, and I'm now into sales of, hey, I have developed all these relationships, throughout students, players, other coaches, coworkers, boss, parents of students, parents of coaches, and just how I could juggle those different kind of relationships, how I was selling every day. Hey, it doesn't work for me just to walk in there and be boring. Being a teacher, I had to sell, and everybody knows math's one of those things. It's a hard sell. Like kids are either all in or they're all out. It's hard to grab those middle ones. So I think being able just to persuade them, also being into cybersecurity, having that math background of, hey, I was also in math education, but I, was lucky and I dual majored in pure mathematics where I could have rolled into other degrees as well. And I had a great advisor at the time. I think I had to take 2 extra courses who really pushed, they were upper level, tough courses, but push for it. Hey, you never know where your career ends up. So yeah, to basically, answer that, it's not necessarily, they'll look at the resume, but it's, if you can get that initial interview and you can prove, here's where I have value, here's some skills that I built, and match them to what, you got to know what that job is really well. You can't just apply for that job without knowing the day to day, right? So it's also about networking and reaching out to people and learning more. Something I did as well, I was fortunate. There's I had contacts who used to be teachers that were then into sales, whether it was cybersecurity or not. And I got connected early on, and even well before I started interviewing or applying, I was reaching out to them and just asking them, hey, what's your day-to-day like? What's the change like? And those types of things to help me prepare to get to that point when I was able to make that jump. And I think what really helped me was some of having to do the interviews remotely and present some presentations. They basically say, hey, like, we'll give you, I think I had the weekend, present to us what you know about Palo Alto Networks. I was like, well, I know nothing. Like I have to really prepare, right? And do this and present. And I came up with a creative way to do that, having that, teacher background of, hey, how can I come up with a creative lesson? How can I get the buy-in on something that's not fun necessarily? I think really helped me get the foot in the door and get this career jump started.
As always, experience and relationships. Those are the 2 big things that can really help
Yeah.
when making a career change or starting a career or anything like that. As
Yep.
you think about the, I guess, computer technical field that you're in, I know there are a ton of jobs out there. You've talked about cybersecurity. Can you maybe just talk about what are some of the things that, or positions that high school students might be wanting to consider? Maybe are there any things out there that they maybe haven't heard of yet because they're really up and coming? You talked about AI a little bit. Obviously, that's huge. So I guess any background you can give regarding what are some careers in technology and in computers and IT that kids might want to explore?
Sure. So, obviously that was something that when I was at maybe the age of the students in high school, I didn't know much about. But in terms of just here, like Palo Alto Networks or being a tech or cyber company, I mean, you're always going to have the sales, right? People got to sell it like I do. We also have like post sales. Well, once we get that sale, who's there to kind of guide their hand. We also have something I didn't learn about. It's a 2-tier selling. So basically, we don't ever sell directly to the end customer. We have partners who work for us. So these other tech companies, basically, that we sell to, but they actually get sold to from a distribution center. So we're, a leader in firewalls, and we sell a lot of hardware firewalls. So we have these distribution centers that need to get these shipped, out to the end customers. So we actually sell to them, who sell to the partners, sell to the customer. So anyway, long story short, there's also channel account managers that help with those partners, the distribution to help in sales, as well as obviously my background. I'm not very technical. I'm still learning a lot about cybersecurity. We have what we call our systems or sales engineers that have to go through extensive training all the time, to be approved or able to, talk highly of some of our most intricate solutions in that standpoint. And it's funny because a lot of times on those calls, it'll just be battling back and forth. They'll have, the end customer's engineer with our engineer, whether it's, a software, hardware, what have you. They're very well trained in that. So that's something, and it's a really cool route, especially with where AI is going, is a lot of automation and things of that sort. It's more of who's the controller behind some of these robots. So it's kind of cool. That would definitely be something I would say to explore, especially the sales route. It's interesting just trying to learn the full sales cycle. I was very intrigued by that, once I got into this, having not much experience in the business world. But then obviously you're going to have your leaderships, your C-suite, which your CEOs, as they'll know, or for us, we sell a lot to the CISO, which is Chief Information Security Officers, or the CIO, which is Chief Information Officers, who deal more in the IT world. And then, once we sell and they're having some issues, we also have a TAC team of engineers around the world that are able to, support those customers, as well as some of those partners that we sell through have their own teams. So there are a ton of jobs I could keep rambling on, but it's definitely a cool area to explore. Would be some of that computer engineering or computer science, as well as the sales route. Whether you go for the channel or, sell to end customer is two that I'd really recommend checking out if you don't know much about.
If someone was to go down that path, we think about the education they would need. I mean, 4-year degree, 2-year degree certifications, are all of those relevant in today's technology company, or is there one area that maybe is more important than the others?
That's a good question. I'm not 100% sure, me being a different background, I'm not sure what they look for. Obviously they're going to want a 4-year, college degree. I would say the sooner you can start on this, you're starting in high school and taking college classes, if there's a computer science introductory 101, whatever there may be, it's definitely not going to hurt you, right? It's only going to look better on your resume. And it also might help you, figure out that maybe it's not for you earlier in your career, right? You get into that class and engineering is cool, right? And then you really see what it's about. So, I would definitely say, poke around with it as soon as possible. It's going to be for one of those engineerings, a 4-year degree, and then extensive year and a half, maybe 2 training once you, get the job here at Palo or wherever it may be. Of certifications to what we specifically do in sell. Like, you're not going to take a college class that's on, Palo Alto Networks. It's just, you're not. But if you take it, maybe an intro, I don't even know, of cybersecurity or, software, something of that sort, software engineering, then, that's definitely going to help.
And I think that makes clear, again, like you said, you might have that college degree, but once you even get the job, you have a lot more learning to do. The learning never stops. You're always developing and adding more. So
Right.
someone who wanted to get into technology sales, what would you say are the most positive aspects of that career?
Not to just, beat AI like a drum, but, for us, tech sales, or really the cybersecurity, isn't going away, right? It's, the economy's a little up and down right now. Sales can be tough. It can be challenging. But right now, what we're seeing, the threat vectors, the bad guys, so you say, are getting more advanced with, having AI on their hands, which means we got to be more advanced, which means our end customers want to be more advanced. So they love hearing that. To really answer that question, the tech sales or selling tech sales is like, it's, booming and growing. Yes, there were some layoffs, but here internally, I know we just expanded our sales team like twice the size here for the SMB market, and added a bunch of positions. There are a lot of jobs out there, and there will always be a lot of jobs out there in tech sales. Technology is not stopping; it never will. I mean, that's why it's called, technology, and things are going to keep getting faster, more automated. It's going to be, crazy by the time these high school students are poking around here in 5, 6, 7 years to get a job in this world. It's going to be completely changed. There will be jobs we haven't even thought of, managing whatever. I can't even make anything up because we no.
I didn't think about either. Like you said, the bad guys using AI as well. I guess I always think, oh, with all the good things that could come out of that, but yeah,
Yeah.
the bad
Yep.
guys can use it for bad things, and that's where you come in and your company comes in to
Oh yeah.
hopefully protect us from all of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Other end of the spectrum, what is maybe the biggest struggle or concern with a career in tech sales?
It's very competitive. That's what I will say. Being in the sales and into tech, we have a lot of competitors who are trying to always one up us as we are them. Fortunately enough, we have a very good brand, Palo Alto Networks, in terms of firewalls, as well as we keep expanding the market to keep up with that technology. I would say that's the most frustrating part. You might lead a deal to the very end and then they choose the competitor, whether it be price or they have somebody internally that's used them in the past and doesn't want to be kind of retrained. That's a difficulty for sure. And there's new startups all the time that are out there, come up with a good idea, and that's just going to happen. We, like I said, Palo Alto Networks have invested a ton of money and made those acquisitions. What typically happens is if there is not necessarily a startup or somebody that's dominating a little lower level in a particular area, we'll buy them out and acquire them, bring them into our technology portfolio. But you also have the other big dogs, like some of our competitors that aren't ever going to, cave, or they're not going to buy us out. We ain't buying them out. So just the competition in sales is challenging. I mean, to put it in perspective, think about cars nowadays. It's hard to decide, well, what kind of car. Now you might be, I don't know, a Toyota user. So maybe you have a little bit of that bias towards, Toyota or what have you. That's the same thing we run into with technology and trying to sell it.
Yeah, and like you said, everything is always changing, and everyone's always trying to have the next best thing, and
Yep.
it's just something you are going to deal with in sales.
Absolutely.
So
That's
as we wrap up, thinking back over your time as a teacher, now in sales and technology, is there anything that you know now about careers or life that you look back and wish you had known when you were in high school?
Yeah, absolutely. I wish I would have explored a little bit more. I felt like, I made that jump into, being in education freshman year at Finley. Really liked it, but I wish I would have just poked around. And I had some of my teammates that were in business, and I was always intrigued just hearing some of those conversations, some of the things, some of them that were more in the accounting route and some of the auditing and stuff like that. I wish I would have just, explored a little bit more, even if I was sticking with education, maybe just took a class over the summer or online or something of that sort. We had like maybe a career day or two in high school, but nothing like a specific class to take. I wish we would have had something like that. I think that would have been really beneficial to maybe changing my mind sooner than later. I also still in a pretty good spot because having conversations with, other colleagues of that nature where I was 7 years in, they're like, you got to kind of decide now, I'm 4 years invested in Ohio, 3 here, retirement wise. So, but I think definitely just having a class and just researching on your own, just figuring out, talk to people, shadow people. If you have a family friend that's doing something that you might like, ask them some questions. I wish I would have done, more of that thing and had somebody tell me that at that age.
Right. Right. Well, and again, we all have 2020 hindsight, but you're in a good place now. It's worked out well. And like you said, all of those relationships and even just that process of teaching, that's something that you were able to now use in sales and improve how you do there. So again, I think all of that makes perfect sense. And Luke, I really appreciate you joining me today, and good luck as you continue on your journey to wherever your career might take you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story, and to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me. And as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.